it looks like it's 12 o'clock. I'll just reintroduce myself briefly. My name is Robert Passas. I'm a Millennium Fellow and Campus Director at Northeastern University in Boston, Massachusetts. And I'm joined by Sarah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Goodman. I'm also a Millennium Fellow at Northeastern University in Boston, Massachusetts.
So it's a great pleasure to welcome today's Millennium Fellowship webinar featuring Mr. Luis Moreno-Ocampo. Thank you so much for joining us today.
No, my pleasure.
So for the next 15 minutes or so, we will be moderating this dialogue. For about 15 minutes, it'll just be us and Mr. Moreno-Ocampo. And then for the remaining 30 minutes, we'll have some questions ready and we'll get to it as soon as we can.
Okay. And just please remember to mute yourself when you're not speaking. And if you have any questions or you want to introduce yourself, please just do so in the chat box. If you have not introduced yourself yet, please write down your name, university, and country. It's great to have so many people from all around the world, and let's begin.
Okay. So some introductory items. So for those that are unfamiliar, Mr. Moreno-Ocampo was the first prosecutor of the new and permanent International Criminal Court. His office was involved in some of the most serious crises of the 21st century, including Iraq, Korea, Afghanistan, and Palestine. He conducted investigations in 7 different countries, presenting charges against Muammar Gaddafi for crimes against humanity committed in Libya, the president of Sudan, Omar al-Bashir, for genocide in Darfur, the former president of Ivory Coast, Laurent Gbagbo, Joseph Kony, and the former vice president of the Democratic Republic of Congo, Jean-Pierre Bemba. Previously, he played a crucial role during the transition to democracy in Argentina, as a deputy prosecutor in the junta trial in 1985, and the prosecutor in the trial against the military rebellion in 1991. In October 2012, the World Bank appointed Mr. Moreno-Ocampo to lead an expert panel to examine the alleged corruption conspiracy related to $3 billion, the $3 million project in Bangladesh.
So Mr. Moreno-Ocampo also played a key role in establishing compliance systems in the telecommunication, energy, gas, and other privatized services in Argentina. As a private consultant, an active board member of Transparency International, and former president of its Latin America and Caribbean office, and an advisor of the World Bank Institute, he designed anti-corruption strategies in more than 40 countries. In 2000, he founded Mercados Transparentes, Transparent Markets, an innovative company providing information about public procurement to the private sector. He has taught seminars in anti-corruption strategies at Stanford, Harvard, and is currently a senior fellow at the Jackson Institute for Global Affairs at Yale University and a distinguished visiting scholar at New York University. In 2011, The Atlantic included him among the Brave Thinkers, which is a guide to the people risking their reputations, fortunes, and lives in pursuit of big ideas. That same year, Foreign Policy designated him as one of the 100 top global thinkers, the magazine's portrait of the world's marketplace of ideas and the thinkers who make them. So welcome, Mr. Moreno-Ocampo. It's a pleasure having you today.
Thank you.
Did we miss anything?
Yeah, in fact, last 4 years I spent at Harvard University. I left Yale 5 years ago, and I'm at Harvard teaching in January and a senior fellow at the Carter Center for Human Rights. But it's fine. It's fine. No worries.
Wonderful. Well, yes. Hopefully, as you said earlier, we can find you at the Carr Center in some lectures. But just to start, we'd like to just have some opening questions to give sort of foundation for the rest of the discussion, if that's all right.
Okay.
So first, in your opinion, what is the role of the ICC in society, given that it is both independent and interdependent?
Okay. Let me compare International Criminal Court with my work in Argentina in the 80s. Because we conduct big trials in both, in the Argentine and in the ICC, against top leaders who commit massive atrocities. What the difference is? In Argentina, we have, since 1930, well beyond your parents' born, we have coup d'etat. Each time we have a democratic regime. So, and nothing happened to the dictators after. However, in 1983, one of the candidates, after one dictatorship was ending, and one of the candidates proposed something absolutely crazy. We will prosecute the leaders, prosecute the generals. And he was a minority candidate, but he received support and he won the election, 52%. In the 80s, it was 83. All South America was under dictatorship. Pinochet was in Chile, and the crazy Argentinians proposing the election support the idea to prosecute the generals. So there was 52% of the people supporting the idea to do cases. The Congress elected, supported unanimously, and we have one of the first truth commission, and then we have the junta trial. So our trial was the strawberry of a big cake. It's a political cake cooked by the politicians and led by the politicians. At the ICC, I was a strawberry with no cake. That's a big difference. You see, I was a strawberry, I did the trials, but there is no elections globally. You cannot vote globally. There is no government, there is no president, there is no social movement, there is nothing. I put my strawberry on top of the air. And part of my job was to build the cake. I cannot do it. I had to put my strawberry, inviting the other to please build the cake, do political support, do other activities to prevent crimes. That is the biggest difference. And that's why for me, I like this conversation with you, because I feel my generation cannot see the problem, because my generation was educated in national systems. Lawyers of my generation discuss national systems. Political science discuss national systems. Even in the US, international relations is about the US. It's about how US interests are respected globally. So everything is national. But your generation became global. You born global. For you, the iPhone is normal. The cell phone are normal. Good guys. When I was your age, I was not using cell phone. Not because I was stupid, because there were not existing cell phones. Cell phones were developed in 1988. And so the same time that the junta trial was conducted, cell phone started. When I was appointed ICC prosecutor, Facebook started. So that's so new. It's so new. For you, it's normal now to have a punishing big leaders, but it's completely new. It's against 5,000 years of impunity. And that was I tried to present to you. That's why I like the idea that some people from other disciplines are here. We need computer engineers understanding how to build systems, because, as I say, the trial is like a little aspect of a system. The importance is not what happened in trial. The importance is what happened in the prevention of the crimes. No, if you are in a freeway, the importance is not if someone receives a ticket or someone is stopped by police. The importance is everyone respects speed. That's the concept. And we need to do that. But we were talking before on neurosciences. Neuroscience showed today that human can have empathy. And in fact, your generation has empathy through the Facebook systems and the different networks. But all the political systems are national, have no empathy for the other political system. So what I see is we are living in the 21st century with institutions from the 18th century, and they are not working. I'm not proposing to dismantle the national state. On the contrary, national state was very important. You can see a book from Steven Pinker showing the relevance in terms of violence. If you saw Vikings, the film, the miniseries in Netflix, you saw they were raiding. Raiding stopped with the national state. The national state stopped raiding. So national states are very important, but it's not enough. In the same way, the cities are important, national states are important, and global is important. And that, for me, is the computer engineer thinking on that. We have cities, we have nationals or states in the US, like the federal system, cities, states, California, Los Angeles, California, US, and we need something bigger or different, not bigger, different to face global issues, including climate change. That's obvious. But there are also international crimes like international terrorism and genocide. So what I try to do now is to find my way to pass my experience to your generation. That's why I like this webinar.
Thank you. Next question. How does the ICC guarantee effectiveness, even though not all countries, especially some certain major countries, have not signed on or ratified the Rome Statute?
No guarantee. No guarantee. Zero guarantee. Zero. No, that's the point. You are used to have a cell phone, you push a button and it works. Okay, but sometimes there is no Wi-Fi. When there is no Wi-Fi, your cell phone is not working. And that, ICC is a cell phone. But the Wi-Fi is national state cooperation. So without national state cooperation, not working. So depend. There's no guarantees. That's the point. That's the problem.
Okay. And sort of bridging those 2 points of global community and accountability and having countries sign on to the Rome Statute, besides having these developments of new technology this generation, as you say, how has actions by countries like the US revoking visas for investigators and maybe getting in the way of the ICC functioning optimally, how does that sort of, what are the impacts, and then also how does it impact more broadly the global community and how we can come together to have accountability for international crime?
What happened is, when I started my tenure, I started in June 2003, in the middle of the Iraq intervention. And Bush was totally against us because they ordered torture, so they don't like ICC. US has a defense policy with a global perimeter. Normally, Argentina controls Argentina territory and the army is inside the territory. And that's the normal thing. US has deployed his army around the world. That's why for US, it's very risky to have an international criminal court because it could affect its own army. That's why when Bush started Iraq war, he was very hostile against ICC. And when I took office, I remember I was visiting professor at Harvard in those days. And a colleague of me told me, Luis, reject the offer. It's a great honor to be the ICC prosecutor, but without the US, you can do nothing. You cannot investigate crimes. You cannot arrest individuals. So it will be a shame for you. You will be 9 years in the Hague doing nothing. And many of my judges have the feeling that the court will be closed in 1 or 2 years. So that was a risk in 2003. And for me, it was good to say, okay, I had to ignore the US and build the court in a different way. And we did it. When I left in 2012, the court was up and running. It's no more a risk that the court will disappear. The issue is the relevance of the court. That's the issue. Not just the relevance to protect people, and it's not just the court relevance, it's the relevance of international law to manage violence. That's the real problem of the world today. Because what happened is, on the same September 11, President Bush decided to use war, use the military forces against terrorists. And that's a different model than the ICC. So ICC was a model to do justice globally. President Bush decided to do war globally. And in a war on terror, you legally can kill people with no warning, with no rights. And that's why the two models are in parallel. And when you ask me, I don't think it's about the ICC. I think it's about how your generation could live in a peaceful country, in a peaceful world, because that's the problem. Today, as a consequence of the conflict in Iraq, Afghanistan, there are 70 million people displaced, 70 million. There were 45 after the Second World War. In 2009, there were 47. So we overcome the record of the Second World War, and then we're growing. And no one discussed that, because it happened outside the US, happened outside Europe. What's happening in Europe and US, you are against immigration. You consider all these refugees are possible terrorists, and you don't like them. And all Europe is changing, it became much more right-wing because of that. But even in US, you consider Mexican as dangerous. So that's the crazy thing. We're trying to fix the world, fixing my own country, and that's not working. So that's why my long answer to your question is it's not just about the ICC. ICC is okay. I think we'll survive. The issue is its relevance, and the relevance of international law to manage conflict. And to increase the relevance, we need to learn how to use new technologies. That is, for me, obvious.
Thank you. Next question is, how do you, balance these interests of getting justice through a fair trial, but also justice for these victims of these conflicts?
With difficulties. No. It's very difficult because, as I said before, we are strawberry on the cake. So in some countries, the government support, Colombia is an example, full of contradiction, but moving up. In Kenya, we investigate two leaders of two different groups who were killing each other, and now they became president and vice president of Kenya. So basically, those suspects won and became president by president, and the ICC became marginal. So depends on the cases. In Darfur, we investigated crimes, and President Bashir was supported by the Obama administration because Obama administration was involved in the war on terror and in the South-North conflict. Obama needed support. Obama decided to ignore Darfur genocide and get Bashir to support the war on terror in Yemen and the South-North. So international law is not homogeneous. The law is homogeneous, but the application and the impact depend on the countries. International law, international institutions are a piece of a national system, working differently in Kenya, Colombia, or Darfur.
Wonderful, thank you so much. We'll do one more question before we go into Q&A. So my father, Nikos Passas, who also studies corruption.
Oh, your father.
Yeah.
Okay. Send my regard to your father.
Yeah, he sends his regards as well. He wanted to know, what are your thoughts on the creation of an international criminal court that focuses exclusively on corruption, as Judge Wolf has proposed?
It's a nice idea, but it will take a lot of years because basically corruption is the sport of people in power. Not many leaders commit genocide, few in fact. The issue is it's difficult to isolate them, but in each party in the government, you will find corruption cases. So that's why in order to have a court, you have to have first reduce corruption to be minimal. If you reduce corruption to be minimal, fine, put the court. But until you have a minimal corruption, it's not working. So it will not work. So I like Mark Wolf's idea as a goal, but in the first step, it transformed corruption for a normal business to a limited business. And let me finish this conversation with a joke I saw in the New Yorker, who is playing the problem very well. The joke is, the image is two fat guys who look at senators coming down from the Capitol from the US Congress. And one of them said the other. What I never understood is that is this issue of abuse of power. Because if you have power and you cannot abuse of it, why do you need power? So corruption is the normal behavior of those with power. And that's why a court will not work well, because basically the court, if it's doing a case, will not change the equilibrium, the political equilibrium. I can talk more about that, but my feeling is that's why I need computer engineer people. It's not about the court, it's about the system, how the system works.
Great. Well, thank you so much. While we wait for some more questions from the viewers, do you maybe have some words of advice for us as young people? What kind of skill sets are needed in the world now? You mentioned engineers, you mentioned scientists, but what kind of skill sets and mentalities do you think we need to face future problems?
I think you have a big problem. Not just you, us as humanity. Because in my time, my generation was making rebellions against the system. And now it's obvious that we need to not just rebel against the system, you have to invent a new system. That's why it's so complicated. And you need to use your capability, but you have to understand the past. That is my feeling is my job is to help the young guys to understand the past. We will design the future, but understand the past. Example of that. One of my students at Yale wrote a paper mentioning that the real danger of the Islamic State were not the combatants, were the webmasters. Because the webmasters attract more recruitment and keep the Islamic State growing. And his paper was so good that he was guided by CIA to present ideas to them. And he was my student, so I said, it's great. What you're proposing to CIA? You're right. The webmaster is the problem, not the combatants. So what's your proposal? Oh, I told the CIA, you have to kill now the webmasters, not the combatants. And so the new ideas come with the old solutions. That's not the solution. Killing the webmaster is not a solution. Will be replaced. So we need to invent new technological solutions. But in particular, I believe we need to learn how to use what we are doing now, how to use new technical mechanisms to build communities. That we need to do. No, we need like a Tinder app to build communities against war. That's what I'm working. I'm working on that topic.
Great. So we actually have our first question from, I'm very sorry if I mispronounce any names, Bettina from the University of Nairobi. Bettina, would you like to ask your question?
Okay, hello. Okay, my name is Bettina Okinyi from the University of Nairobi, Kenya. And you were in Kenya and you did the case. I'm a lover of your work. For a moment there, I thought we had justice, and then they were let go. My question is, what difficulties you faced in your work? And in that, sometimes these people have a lot of influence, you know, and like at that time, as you said, it was our president and deputy president, and they won the election despite having criminal cases. So what are some of the difficulties you face in doing your work? Because I know at some point they were also influencing the witnesses and things like that because they have so much power. What other difficulties do you face? And what would you advise people coming after you, taking up your position? Yes.
No, it's not about my position. I think Kenya showed the problem because I tried to present the case in Kenya on time that because basically, let me present the issue properly. 2008 elections in Kenya, there were a big a lot of violence because there was discussion if the people in government steal the election. So basically, it was a massive atrocities committed against different groups. We investigated crimes. Kenya was, in fact, Kenya established a commission, and with the report, the WACO report, and there, Kenya, Kofi Annan was pushing, African Union was pushing, so Kenya was moving in the right direction. And my feeling was, okay, I need to present the cases before the next election. Then letting the Kenya to do what Argentina did, having some political leaders proposing justice and making the cake. But, okay, one of the candidates was killed in a helicopter. And then Kenyatta and Ruto, the two suspects, were very smart, and they used the IC intervention to present as a foreign issue. They were pretty good. And no political leaders challenged them. Odinga, who was the other political leader, did not mention ICC during the election. So everyone was coming, okay, this transforming into a tribal issue or Kenyan issue against the foreigners. And they won the elections. And after that, they just tampered the witness. And that case showed the possibility and the limits of the ICC, because ICC need political leadership, national leadership, and was absent. What do you say?
Wonderful. Now we have a question from Harish N at PSG College of Arts and Science in India.
Wow.
Am I audible?
Yes.
No?
Yes,
My
go
question
ahead.
is, in India, we have faced so many genocides, such as by Sri Lankan genocide on Tamilians in India. What should be our attitude toward that genocides? Is it to being calm, or to the mentality of the people is like revenging them, revenging those politicians or the country people? What should be our attitude toward that?
Can you repeat the question, the moderator?
We are facing some genocides we have faced in our country.
In Sri Lanka?
Yeah, in Sri Lanka.
Okay.
But those people were from our side, from India.
Okay.
It's during the Indo-Sri Lankan War during 2000s. Yeah. Hello?
Yes, so what the question is?
Yeah. What toward that? It is past, but what should be our attitude toward it? It is past. Hello?
Hi. I can repeat the question. The question was, what should be our attitude towards these previous events, like in Sri Lanka and genocides within India? Should there be like actions taken? Yeah.
Okay. First, the ICC cannot intervene in India, neither India nor Sri Lanka, because ICC intervened when first the states ratified the treaty. ICC is a piece of the Rome Statute system. So if the countries are not ratifying the Rome Statute, ICC cannot intervene. ICC is not global, it's just working when the states sign the treaty. So ICC cannot work there. India and Sri Lanka are two different problems, in my view. Sri Lanka has this conflict, internal conflict, and now happened. So there are different political discussions what to do with the past. And that's very important. And at the same time, the discussion is how to manage the future. But ICC cannot intervene there. India is similar. India has a problem of guerrillas inside India and Pakistan problem. That's another issue that should be solved, but it's not just ICC in those states cannot, in both places cannot intervene. So we need to create consistency. My feeling is, okay, that's my idea. My idea is we need to build, that's why I was talking about a Tinder system. We need to build some algorithm to connect moderates and moderates. Because you talk about empathy, or we talk about empathy before. The problem is I saw that in Israel. I teach in Israel, in Jerusalem, for Israeli universities and Palestinian universities. And I learned that my students, the moderate Israelis, team up with extremist Israelis. The narrative became extremist. And on the Palestine is similar. You have moderate Palestinians teaming up with extremist Palestinians. And there is no dialogue there. So we need to use algorithms to build moderate and moderate communities, and massive. And that could make a change. That's what I see. That's why I think it's not just about one institution solving the problem. We need first to create a global consensus, a global massive support. And then politicians will manage differently. So that's what I see in India, in Israel, in all these areas where the communities are divided from the crimes.
Thank you. I actually have the next question. Where do you see the ICC's future going, given the rise of regional courts or even stronger domestic institutions that could potentially prosecute these crimes themselves?
No, it would be great. Look, the ICC model is very interesting because it's a court based on complementarity. The court intervenes just when the national state cannot do it. So that's why at the beginning of my tenure, and many people are familiar with me for that, I say the best outcome of the International Criminal Court would be 0 case. Because if the national system prevents genocide or punish genocide, the court should not intervene. And that's the best scenario. So the idea of the ICC, that's why it's a new model. It's a global system providing incentives to the national systems. Not to create a global mechanism, not creating a global government. It's a very peculiar model where the international court provides incentive to Colombia to conduct proceedings. And Colombia is doing the proceeding, then the ICC should not intervene. That's the model that could make a difference in climate change. In climate change, countries sign the treaties, the Kyoto Convention, and they never fulfill their promises. And no one intervened there because there's no an independent monitoring system. The uniqueness of the ICC is there's a treaty, consensus, ratified, but then an independent mechanism, the court and the prosecutor in particular, intervening if the state failed to act. That is, then international courts, perfect for the system, perfect. That's why it's not about doing cases in The Hague, it's about how the system works.
Okay, great, thank you. We have another question from Cynthia. Cynthia's at Kenyatta University in Nairobi, Kenya. Cynthia,
Yeah.
can you hear us? Can we hear you?
Yeah, I can hear you. My question is, okay, what's your take on countries withdrawing from ISIS?
Yes, the fact that Burundi and Philippines, which are the two countries that withdrew from the ICC, they withdrew because they are committing crimes and their leaders could be prosecuted. That's why they are withdrawing. So it's showing that it's effective. If you are committing crimes, you have to leave the system because if not, you will be prosecuted. So it's bad for Burundi and bad for Philippines. ICC will survive it, not. When I start my tenure, there were 78 state parties. Now there are 124, and then less 122 is enough. We don't need so to exist, I think it exists with much less state parties. The problem is the world, how the world will work with national states are killing individuals in their own system. That's the problem.
Thank you. So just another question from us. We were wondering if you wanted to talk about the current problems across Latin America, where there are massive protests and civil unrest from Chile to Bolivia. Can you relate the current political situation to how it's being dealt with now versus your time in Argentina in the 80s?
No, what happened is I think the world is evolving and people are demanding more to political systems who are not good enough, and economic systems are not good enough. So that's the point. We need to renew the idea how we organize our life. And South America has freedom, so people are demanding. That's great. The problem is there are a lot of demands of justice and evolution, not many offer. And that's why, for me, what I like to, I don't know if you can do that, but it will be great if we can start to work not just on discussing what I did, in discussing what you could do. It would be great to have a pilot project, what this network of people you're putting together can do. For instance, for me, it's a shame that at Harvard, we are not developing new models to face international terrorism. Can we start to ask questions on that? Can we start to use this group to challenge India, Pakistan, US? Okay, how you were planning to deal with terrorism? Because killing them is not working well. So what you can do differently. So it would be great if you can start to challenge them. And the fact that you have people from different countries help a lot. So my suggestion is, okay, can we focus on action? Because you are the future. You are the ones who have to think on these issues.
Okay, thank you. And moving again to an area of collective action, we have a question now from Alyssa Pasco, a student from Northeastern in Boston.
Hi, thank you so much for being here and speaking with us today. It's really inspiring to hear your words and also your expertise. I'm particularly interested in international human rights, and I was just really curious to hear your thoughts about specifically how international human rights law is enforced by large international bodies, and if you think that additional mechanisms could be helpful in increasing enforcement and protection of human rights.
Okay. The only system to protect rights, normally since 1945, the UN Charter consolidated the idea that national states protect human rights. National states, so states make agreement on principles, but then they implement the principle in their own way. The only different mechanism is the Rome Statute of the ICC. It's just for crimes against humanity and genocide and war crimes, so it's such a high bar. There is no international mechanism to control gender inequality or coup d'etat or corruption. There is nothing, zero. So that's why I need, my thinking is human rights people are demanding more rights. We need to focus, and it's a consistent global demand. The offer is not coming, the delivery is not coming. So we need to start to understand more delivery. What is happening that is not delivery? And you see, in Philippines, Duterte is popular killing people. And in Europe, the right wing became popular, saying no. So there's a trend because people feel it's chaos. So it's a trend to be less respectful of human rights. So we need to understand what is happening and help people to improve their life. Moving beyond the national states that got our full authority. We need to invent something new. We have to work on that.
Thank you. We actually have our next question from Mohammed from Georgetown University. Mohammed, would you like to ask your question at this time?
Yeah, thank you, sir, for your presentation. I had a question about extrajudicial killings, actually, like those of Jamal Khashoggi and Mohamed Morsi in Egypt. Those, I don't think, fall under the mandate of the ICC, nor do they fall under the mandate of any other UN organization, actually. So what independent mechanism could potentially interact with the ICC? Could it rule?
There is none. There is none. In fact, Egypt is not a member of the ICC. So ICC could not intervene. The only organ that can intervene is Security Council. I don't know. So that's the new challenge. The case you presented are the new challenge. What difference should be done to face these challenges?
Yeah. Just to follow up on that. So you mentioned like the use of algorithms and other technological solutions to like bring about social cohesion and, as you said, areas. But I mean, as you mentioned, there's such a high bar for cases that could be presented to the ICC, like crimes against humanity and genocide. And even as we just mentioned, countries that aren't even part of the ICC. So are you like advocating a more trend-setting approach for the ICC, that it adopts a certain perspective or a certain company or like a certain initiative, and you hope that other organizations or institutions will also adopt it?
No, I'm not. No, ICC has its own rules, and Egypt will not be under ICC except the Security Council referred situation. So, no, my suggestion is beyond ICC, because my feeling is ICC is an evolution of the political system. It should not be the last evolution. Instead to discuss what is wrong, what's no, we should keep evolving. And what I feel is we need to understand, we need communities, not just institutions. We need communities providing connection with institutions. So, and that's why my feeling is algorithms today are programmed to isolate groups, to create echo chambers, group isolated. I believe we should invent something to connect groups, to build communities. That's the next challenge. And if you build a community, then you will have the mechanism to protect the communities. That, and ICC could be one or a different one. As you say, if we can build the communities in Egypt between those more pro-government and anti-government and build a common ground, that would make a difference. That's the challenge. Build a community between Israelis, moderate, and Palestinian moderated, between moderate Pakistanis and moderate Indians. That we need to do. Because divisions in communities make possible the killings. Oh, look, I met killers, massive killers, in my country and the world. And there's a common ground, all of them. They justify their killings saying, I am protecting my community. My mother was against me when I prosecuted generals, because my mother was feeling that General Videla was protecting her against guerrilla groups. So that is a trick the leaders do. They say, okay, this is my community could be Tutsis, could be Jews, could be Germans, could be communists, could be capitalists, could be Pakistanis, could be Muslims, could be Christians, could be Yazidis, whoever. And to protect my community, I need to attack the others. That's the model. That's why we need to transform this idea of one community against other community and build one community. That's complicated because normally communities were created when they were attacked. So the conflict built communities. So we need to build community without the conflict. That's a challenge. That's why we need to invent something like Tinder, with using different feelings to transform the interaction. I'm sitting on Tinder. I don't know if you know. I quote Tinder because I learned that the guy who invented Tinder, it's a Pakistani American. He understood women reject 95% of men, and men feel frustrated. So what the guy invented was the idea to show the rejections, show just the matching. And then the guy was happy, have one or two girls who match them and fine. So when I think in algorithm, we think, okay, how we can filter the extremists and connect groups moderate from different groups. That is for me one idea I'm exploring on how to use algorithms, not just to do specific cases, to do the basic, build the community, to have empathy between us.
Thank you for your response. We have another question from Seliudini. Are you there?
Hello. Okay, sure. So personally, I really enjoy international law. I have a question on international environmental refugee. So what I want to know is what mechanism should countries develop to solve problems of international environmental refugee without taking political sovereignty of the country?
Can you repeat the question? The moderator, can you translate it?
Yes. So the question is, what mechanism should states develop to solve a problem of international environmental refugees without hurting political sovereignty of the states?
We need to invent community-community connections, because I believe the new trend is not just the interaction between states, is not the only valid interaction. What we are doing now is showing there's a space to have individual interactions, to discuss strategies, to discuss what to do. That, I think, is the future. We need to transform this conversation into a massive conversation with outcomes. That we should do. States will not take care of the others. States take care about what's happening inside the state, not outside the states, by definition. That's why the interaction with the state is not enough to solve the conflict. States are still important, and respect of sovereignty is still important, but there are limits. That's why I like to use the example of Athens. For 22 centuries, between 6th century before Jesus Christ until 17th century, the cities were the political system. And Athens, in ancient Greece, respect citizens. They cannot kill people with no trial within Athens. Outside Athens, no problem. The enemies were killed with no problem. Took 22 centuries to move from cities to the national state. And then all the pre-national state became citizens. Today in Greece, there are no wars between Athens and Minos. No, there's no war. Why? Because both are part of Greece. The national state protects. There are no wars between Washington and San Francisco. No, because they are part of the system. And took 22 centuries to move from cities to territorial states, to national states. And now it's time to move from national state to something global. But the issue, that's why I need computer engineer, we need to discriminate what is for the city, what issue should be solved by the city mayor, what is for the state, for the national, and for the global. Globally, there are few issues: climate change, international terrorism, cyber crimes, genocide in a different country, maybe some issues of trade, some issues of taxes. So few issues are global, and we need to find the distinction between global, national, state, and cities.
Thank you so much. We're gonna have one more question on the topic of technology. We have a question from Mohammed from Yemen.
Oh,
Mohammed, are you there?
yeah, from Yemen. Wow. Mohammed, glad to listen to you. Where are you, Mohammed?
Mr. Moreno. Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Oh.
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello, Moreno. I'm Muhammad Al-Ahmadi. I'm a student at Razi University, Information Technology. My question is, before that you talk about technology, how to build communities. How do you imagine this looking? How can we, as youth, participate?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, I can repeat it. So you have talked a lot about technology to build communities. How do you imagine this model looking, and how can the youth participate?
Okay, example. I am going in the spring, in February, to the University of South California, and we're going to develop an anti-genocide app that you push a button and you stop a genocide. Will be a mock anti-genocide app, but we define the goal, we define where we are going. Similarly, imagine if 20 years ago, we can show an iPhone 10. Okay, it's not working, but 20 years ago is a way to understand where to go. I can invite you to join the lab. It's a lab at the USCC on technology, and we discuss different aspects of this, including empathy, how people have empathy for others, including the impact of distance, including the graphic design, including what technology could be useful, and where we can do a case study. So that's what I'm trying to do next February. Join us. From Yemen would be amazing. Yemen is we need to be with Yemen. Yemen is suffering. We should help Yemen. It would be great.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. We have one more question. And how do you think the ICC could be potentially more effective in securing these prosecutions and getting the needed assistance from states? I know you had said earlier that nothing is guaranteed without these state participation and state ratification of their own statute.
ICC show efficiency because I see when I started, one of the biggest issues was where to start. Now there are plenty of cases. Then, can we investigate? Yes, we can investigate. Can you conduct proceedings? Yes. The biggest issue is arrest. Arrest is one of the problems. But arrest is not the responsibility of the judges or the prosecutor. No court, there is a Hamilton, one of the founder fathers of the US, say the judiciary has no pulse and no sword. So basically the money and the weapons are not in the hands of the judiciary and in the hands of the executive branch. So we need to understand how states support more the arrest operations. Arresting Kony, Joseph Kony was a big deal, President Bashir. So the challenges are more in the arrest area, more than the judicial area. And in the diplomatic area. Diplomats have to learn how to manage conflict, respecting the right of the victims to have justice.
Thank you so much for that closing note. We're going to wrap up the questions here. Thank you so much for your time and sharing your experiences with us, from your early prosecution days in Argentina to your thoughts on technology and the way forward. Before we go, we want to know, what is the best way for the fellows to keep in touch with you? We'd love to keep up with what you're doing and to hear from you.
I don't know. You can organize a blog, whatever you want. I can give you my email. I'm finishing a book on these ideas. I like to receive comments from Yemen, Kenya, India, all these places. Perfect for me. So it's more your idea. So I will provide my email to you. You can share to them, or you can organize a blog, whatever you like.
We have a chat box. You can send your email to me, or you can provide it here. Either way would be wonderful. Okay. And what will be do you have a title for the book?
The title is War and Justice in the 21st Century.
War and Justice.
Yeah, War and Justice in the 21st Century. Because it's a famous book called War and Peace by Tolstoy. But if you read Tolstoy, in those days, there was no justice. Now it's a new thing. That things evolve. When you read Tolstoy, you see there was no UN, there was no more diplomacy. They were just, there was diplomacy and war. Now it's war and justice combined. And we need to understand that. So the book is War and Justice in the 21st Century, the establishment of the ICC, and the Rome and the Security Council, and the war on terror. I describe my experience to help people like you to develop new solutions. That's the plan. So I can send to you also my preface and my chapters are with comments. We can discuss a little how to follow up on that. I would like to follow up with you. I would like if this is just a first interaction, not the last.
I feel the same way, and of course we'd love to have you at Northeastern anytime, especially if you're just down the street at Harvard.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you'd like, please provide your email. Otherwise, we can speak later on as well.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you everyone for joining.
Bye-bye.
We would love to follow up with you on the book.
Okay. Fantastic. Thank you. Bye.